Name's easy. My name's Sam. I run the workshop at the Momo Hats. It's different now, but we're no formal sort of paths to being a wheel builder. So it was from other older, more experienced guys that I did my first little bits of wheel building, and it takes someone to show you the basics of how to lace a wheel and how to put it together. And then from that point on, it's just a matter of doing as many as you can, really. But really, there's no substitute for having built a couple of hundred wheels, I think. Well, it's interesting. The fundamentals probably haven't changed for, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe longer than that years. And I think I've been building wheels for, I don't know, maybe 20 years now. And it's only relatively recently the materials have changed significantly. The sort of extruded aluminium rim is more or less the same as it was back in the 90s when I started. And, the advent of carbon, I suppose, is the big difference in wheel building. Is there's more and more carbon fibre rims out there. It's funny. I was saying there are sort of legendary wheel builders out there who have a reputation, and I think it's more there are lots of perfectly competent, good, decent wheel builders out there who may not have that status but are building great wheels day in and day out. And it is about just not losing the passion every time you do it of wanting to produce the best wheel that you can. Sort of real craftsmen aren't really measuring themselves against anybody else in particular. They're happy when they are happy. I suppose you assemble 10 people who've been building wheels for 10 years and ask them all to build a wheel, they'll probably all do it slightly differently. And if they're feeling argumentative, they'll all have an argument over who's doing it absolutely correctly, but they'll all produce great wheels at the end of the day. I was saying it's not difficult to build a really good wheel as long as you keep going back at it. It's easier to build one that isn't quite as good. So I suppose it's whether you want to go that extra little 5% to make it great. I do like every wheel that I do to be as good as it's going to be. I suppose it's that little bit of obsessiveness, having the eye for detail, and as I was saying, having the patience to just keep going back at it until you're satisfied that you can't do any more with it. The lacing and the tensioning is almost a meditation, I guess. You kind of sort of set yourself off on that process that you know very well, and you can do without having to actively sort of control your emotions. You just know exactly what you're going to be doing for the next 20 minutes, so it's quite a nice. I enjoy it. It's one of those strange sort of concentrating, yet you're displaced a little bit, and you can sort of ponder something else. Well, it's interesting. I guess when I was sort of discussing what wheels we were going to give to what rider, and we were trying to, I guess, showcase a few different types of wheel build options, and then mainly dependent on the rider really, rather than the bicycle. I suppose the stuff that we're using for this is kind of the best, which I'm really happy with. When I spoke to James about possibly putting this together, and obviously I thought it complemented the whole hand-built frame scene to not just put a pair of factory wheels on there, and to build the wheels by hand as well and talk to the riders about what they wanted. But I'm pleased we've managed to not compromise on the bits and pieces, because I'm sure the frame builders haven't compromised on what they've used on there. So the hubs are about as good as you can get, the rims are as good as you can get, and the spokes are as good as you can get, and you put those three together well, and you get a wheel that. What I'm hoping is it'd be nice to look at these wheels in 18 months or 2 years' time, and the bikes themselves as well. When these things are, they all look lovely and shiny in Bristol when they're brand new. But I always like to see my wheels a year or two down the line when they've been given a hard time, and hopefully they're still doing their job without complaint. Yeah, I think pride is the right word, really. When you're saying these guys are all quite sort of humble. I find there's very little sort of hubris in this world. No one's out there kind of shouting that they're the best, or if they are, they're probably not the right person for you to have your bike built by. But everyone's quietly proud of what they're doing, and if you're doing it right, you should be. And I guess that's probably how I feel about my wheels. I like to everything that leaves the jig. I like to be proud of it, and if I'm not proud of it, I'll keep going until I think it's good.